The first time humanity volunteered to handle it, 3 entire battle fleets went into immediate lockdown, and I'm not exaggerating when I say the Galactic Council's emergency session lasted 47 hours straight. I was there. I'm Ambassador Velrith of the Cassian Collective, and I've been documenting human behavior for the better part of 6 standard cycles now. Trust me when I tell you nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepares you for what happens when a human says those 4 catastrophic words. It started innocuously enough. Well, as innocuous as a Category 5 stellar anomaly can be. The Drexian Empire had been monitoring a collapsed warp corridor near the Theta periphery, one of those nasty tiers in subspace that occasionally vomits out things that shouldn't exist. Standard protocol: establish a perimeter, send in reconnaissance drones, file 17,000 reports, hold 600 committee meetings, and eventually decide to do basically nothing because confronting cosmic horrors is bad for approval ratings. But this particular anomaly was different. It was growing exponentially, actually, and preliminary scans suggested something was trying to push through from the other side. Something big. Something angry. Something that made our best xenobiologists break out in spontaneous hives just looking at the sensor data. The emergency council session was predictably chaotic. High Chancellor Morthix of the Drexian Empire stood at the central podium, his trilateral breathing apparatus wheezing with stress, while holographic representations of 73 member species flickered around the chamber in various states of panic. The Vreni delegation was already calculating evacuation routes. The Solmari had begun drafting surrender documents, because apparently that's their solution to everything, and the Gorathi military coordinator was screaming about deploying something called a planetary scourge protocol. From what I gathered, basically involved blowing up everything within 100 light-years, and hoping for the best. That's when Commander Eliza Reeves of the Terran Defense Initiative cleared her throat. Now, I'd met Eliza before. Brilliant tactician, decorated veteran of humanity's Centauri campaign, owner of what humans call a deadpan sense of humor that had, on more than one occasion, caused minor diplomatic incidents. She was sitting in the human delegation's section, flanked by Dr. Karim Al-Rashid, their chief xenobiologist, and Captain Tomás Ferreira, a grizzled combat specialist who looked like he'd been carved from granite and bad decisions. "We'll handle it," Eliza said, her voice cutting through the cacophony like a plasma torch through butter. The entire chamber went silent. And I mean the kind of silence that makes your auditory organs hurt, the kind where you can hear your own circulatory system panicking. High Chancellor Morthix's eye stalks swiveled toward the human delegation, with the kind of slow, deliberate movement that suggested he was reconsidering every life choice that had led to this moment. "I'm sorry, Commander Reeves. Did you just say?" "We'll handle it," Eliza repeated, standing up and straightening her uniform with the casual confidence of someone who either has a brilliant plan or has completely lost touch with reality. The anomaly, the potential trans-dimensional incursion, whatever's trying to claw its way through the fabric of space-time to eat our reality. We'll take care of it. Dr. Al-Rashid pinched the bridge of his nose, a human gesture I'd learned indicated either deep concentration or the early stages of a stress-induced aneurysm. "Eliza, maybe we should already discussed it with Fleet Admiral Chen before we got here," Eliza interrupted, pulling up a holographic data slate that materialized in front of her. "Humanity's offering to deploy a rapid response task force. Small, efficient, minimal collateral damage. We go in, assess the situation, neutralize the threat, and be back in time for, what day is it, Tomás?" Captain Ferreira consulted his own wrist-mounted display. "Thursday." "Right. Back in time for Thursday." The Gorathi military coordinator, a massive being named Krell, whose species had evolved from apex predators and still acted like it, let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a growl. "With all due respect to the Terran delegation, this is not a minor border skirmish or a pirate raid. We're talking about a potentially reality-ending event. My fleets have been training for scenarios like this for 300 cycles." Eliza smiled. "And if you've never seen a human smile while simultaneously calculating exactly how to dismantle your entire argument, let me tell you, it's terrifying." "Commander Krell, How many of those 300 cycles of training have actually involved confronting trans-dimensional entities? Krell's mandibles clicked in what I recognized as agitation. Well, theoretically. Theoretically. Eliza's smile widened. We've been dealing with reality-breaking nonsense since we figured out faster-than-light travel. Ask anyone who's read our incident reports from the Epsilon Eridani colony. Oh wait, those are still classified because they're so monumentally weird that 3 separate species requested we never ever talk about them in public. That was, unfortunately, true. I'd tried to access those files once. My security clearance was apparently insufficient, which is diplomatic code for if you knew what happened there, you'd never sleep again. High Chancellor Morthix was making a sound like air slowly escaping from a damaged hull. Commander Reeves, I appreciate humanity's enthusiasm, but the Council has protocols. We have procedures. We can't just let one species unilaterally decide. With respect, Chancellor, Dr. Al-Rashid interjected, finally standing up next to Eliza. While you're busy having this discussion, the anomaly is expanding at a rate of 0.37 astronomical units per standard hour. By the time this council reaches a consensus, assuming it ever does, we'll be dealing with an incursion zone the size of a solar system. He wasn't wrong. The holographic display behind Morthix showed the anomaly's growth projections, and they were not encouraging. Spiraling red vectors indicated potential breach points, while probability matrices calculated everything from spatial distortion to the likelihood of extra-dimensional predators using our reality as a buffet. Furthermore, Dr. Al-Rashid continued, warming to his subject in that way scientists do when they're about to explain something horrifying in excruciating detail. Preliminary analysis suggests the anomaly is responding to conventional scanning methods. Every time we ping it with sensors, it grows faster. It's almost as if it's feeding on our fear, Eliza finished, her expression shifting from confident to something darker, more serious. Or at least on our attention. The more we observe it, study it, panic about it, the stronger it gets. A collective shudder ran through the council chamber. The Vreni delegation started updating their evacuation calculations. Someone in the Salmari section fainted, though, to be fair, they do that a lot. Captain Ferreira spoke up for the first time, his voice gravelly and matter-of-fact. We've seen this before. Not exactly this, but close enough. There's a reason human exploratory vessels carry what we call uncertainty drives in our auxiliary systems. Sometimes the best way to deal with cosmic horror is to stop trying to understand it and start punching it in whatever passes for its face. Punching, Krell repeated slowly, as if testing the word for structural integrity. You want to punch a trans-dimensional anomaly? Metaphorically speaking, Ferreira clarified. Though, if it comes down to it, we've got some new experimental weapons that might literally accomplish that. Classified, obviously. I watched the reactions ripple through the chamber. Disbelief, horror, morbid curiosity, and in a few cases what I can only describe as reluctant admiration. Because here's the thing about humans that the rest of the galaxy still hasn't fully processed. They don't just acknowledge the existence of things that shouldn't exist, they get personally offended by them, and then figure out creative ways to make them stop existing. High Chancellor Morthix looked like he was aging in real time, his chromatophores shifting through the Drexian color spectrum for stress. Even if, and I cannot emphasize enough how hypothetical this if is, even if the Council were to consider your proposal, we would need guarantees. Safeguards. Some assurance that humanity's intervention won't make the situation exponentially worse. Eliza exchanged glances with her colleagues, and I saw something pass between them. Some unspoken communication that all humans seem capable of. Some collective understanding that the rest of us can only observe from the outside, like watching a play in a language we don't quite speak. We can offer you this, Eliza said finally, her tone shifting to something more formal, more measured. We'll deploy a task force consisting of the TDS Defiant, one of our newer Explorer-class vessels, along with specialized support craft. Total personnel, approximately 200. All volunteers, all experienced in anomalous event response. We'll establish a forward operating base at a safe distance, conduct reconnaissance, and develop a neutralization strategy. If at any point the situation exceeds our capabilities or threatens to destabilize the region, we'll withdraw immediately and defer to Council authority. And if it doesn't exceed your capabilities? Asked Ambassador Thalix of the Confederation of Aligned Worlds, her 4 vocal chambers producing a harmony of skepticism. Eliza's smile returned, sharp and confident. Then you'll have one less cosmic horror to worry about, and we'll have another exciting story to not tell anyone about for the next 50 years. The vote took 3 hours, which for the Galactic Council was practically instantaneous. 51 species voted in favor, 17 voted against, and 5 abstained because they were still trying to process what was happening. I voted in favor, mostly because I've learned that betting against human ingenuity is a fool's game, and I didn't become a senior ambassador by being a fool. As the session adjourned, I caught up with Eliza near the chamber's exit. "Commander, can I ask you something off the record?" She turned, eyebrows raised. "Sure, Velrith. What's on your mind? Do you actually have a plan, or are you just making this up as you go along?" Eliza laughed, that particular human sound that can mean anything from genuine amusement to existential terror being converted into social acceptable noise. Little bit of both, honestly. But here's what I've learned in my years dealing with things that want to eat reality. The universe doesn't actually care about your plans. It cares about your ability to adapt when everything goes sideways. And trust me, everything always goes sideways. She paused, her expression becoming more thoughtful. Besides, we're not going in blind. Al-Rashid's team has been developing some interesting theories about trans-dimensional physics, and our weapons division has been dying to field test some equipment that's been labeled potentially reality destabilizing in the safety reports. This seems like the perfect opportunity. That's simultaneously reassuring and deeply concerning. Yeah, Eliza agreed cheerfully. That's pretty much humanity in a nutshell. 72 hours later, I found myself aboard an observation platform positioned exactly 3 astronomical units from the anomaly, close enough to monitor the situation, far enough that if things went catastrophically wrong, we'd have approximately 14 seconds to send our final transmissions before being consumed by whatever horrors emerged from the void. The TDS Defiant was a beautiful ship. I'll give humans that much. Sleek lines that somehow managed to look both elegant and vaguely threatening, like a predator pretending to be a diplomat. She hung in space about half an AU from the anomaly, surrounded by a constellation of support vessels. The science ship Curiosity. Humans really do name everything. The heavy weapons platform Unconventional Response, and 3 rapid deployment corvettes, with names I couldn't pronounce, but that apparently translated to various forms of profanity in ancient Earth languages. Observation platform to Defiant, I transmitted, trying to keep my vocal harmonics steady. Ambassador Velrith requesting permission to monitor operations. Eliza's voice came back almost immediately. "Permission granted, Ambassador. Fair warning, we're about to do something either brilliant or catastrophically stupid, and I'm genuinely not sure which. That's becoming a recurring theme with your species." "Yeah, we've been told that before." I could hear the smile in her voice. "Dr. Al-Rashid, you want to brief our audience?" The scientist's face appeared on my display, and he looked simultaneously exhausted and energized in that way researchers get when they're onto something big. "Ambassador Velrith, we've been analyzing the anomaly's behavior patterns, and Commander Reeves was correct. It's definitely responsive to observation. The more attention we give it, the faster it expands. But here's the interesting part. It's not just responding to any observation. It's specifically feeding on our fear and our attempts to categorize it." "I'm not sure I follow, Doctor." "Think of it like this," Al-Rashid continued, pulling up a holographic model that made my optical organs hurt just looking at it. The entity or entities on the other side of that rift aren't trying to break through because they're hostile. They're breaking through because our constant scanning, our terror, our need to understand them is literally pulling them into our reality. We're creating an invitation through our collective anxiety. Captain Ferreira's voice cut in from somewhere off screen. "So, we're basically summoning cosmic horrors through the power of overthinking. That's the most human problem I've ever heard. And we didn't even start it." "Actually," Al-Rashid said with a slight smile, For once, this one's not on us. The Drexian Empire's been obsessively monitoring this thing for weeks. But the solution, well, that's where humanity's particular brand of insanity comes in handy. Eliza moved into frame, and I noticed she was wearing what humans call combat casual. A flight suit that looked comfortable enough for a diplomatic reception, but was probably rated for vacuum exposure and kinetic impacts. Here's the plan, Ambassador. Instead of trying to understand the anomaly, study it, fear it, or any of that rational, sensible stuff that clearly isn't working, we're going to do the exact opposite. Which is? I asked. Though part of me already suspected I didn't want to know the answer. We're going to ignore it so hard it ceases to exist. There was a long pause while my translator matrix tried to process whether I'd heard that correctly. I'm sorry, you're going to ignore it? Not just ignore it, Al-Rashid clarified, clearly enjoying this. We're going to engage in what humans call aggressive indifference. We're going to fly the Defiant directly at the anomaly, while simultaneously treating it like it's the least interesting thing in the universe. No scanning, no analysis, no fear, just pure, concentrated net. But you'll need sensors to navigate. Nope, Eliza interrupted. Dead reckoning and visual navigation only. We've actually turned off most of our advanced sensors. Right now, the Defiant's running on equipment that's technically less sophisticated than what we used during our pre-warp era. It's humiliating for our ship's AI, but necessary. I heard a synthesized voice in the background mutter something that sounded like I went to Algorithmic Academy for this. And if your theory is wrong? I asked, trying to keep my concern from translating too obviously through the comm channel. Captain Ferreira appeared on screen next to Eliza, and he was eating something, because of course humans would snack during a potential reality-ending crisis. Then we've got the unconventional response standing by with enough exotic munitions to make the anomaly regret its existence. Commander Krell actually loaned us some Gorathi plasma cascade warheads. Apparently, he decided that if we're going to do something monumentally stupid, it might as well be spectacular. He said that. He said, and I quote, "At least when humans fail, they fail entertainingly." I choose to take that as a compliment. The next 6 hours were the strangest military operation I've ever witnessed, and I've observed the Vreni's infamous retreat-based defense strategy, which is exactly as cowardly as it sounds. The Defiant began its approach to the anomaly at what humans apparently consider a casual cruising speed, about 0.15 light speed, which most species would classify as recklessly fast for close-quarters maneuvering. But here's what made it surreal. The crew wasn't treating this like a combat mission. They were treating it like a slightly boring commute. I'd managed to patch into some of the Defiant's internal communications, with Eliza's permission, of course. And what I heard was, well, it was humans being human. There were people discussing lunch options in the mess hall. Someone named Lieutenant Yuki was complaining about the recycling system's tendency to eat her socks. 2 engineers were having a heated debate about something called hollowball statistics, that apparently involved predicting the outcomes of games that hadn't been played yet. The anomaly, meanwhile, was clearly confused. Ambassador, you're seeing this too, right? Al-Rashid's voice cut through my monitoring, and he sounded almost giddy. The expansion rate's slowing down. He was right. The spiraling red vectors on my display were beginning to retract, pulling back like a creature recoiling from something unexpected. The anomaly was still there, a massive tear in space-time that looked like someone had taken a cosmic knife to reality, but it wasn't growing anymore. It's working, I heard myself say, disbelief saturating every harmonic. It's actually working. Of course it's working, Eliza replied, though I detected a note of relief under her confidence. Look, the thing about cosmic horrors is that they're used to being feared, studied, obsessed over. They thrive on that attention, but being completely ignored, that's probably never happened to them before. It's like, imagine you're trying to scare someone, and they just yawn at you. Kind of takes the wind out of your sails. The Defiant was now within visual range of the anomaly. Close enough that I could see the thing with my own optical organs, and I immediately wished I couldn't. It looked like a wound in space, edges writhing with colors that didn't exist in normal physics, and every survival instinct I possessed was screaming at me to look away, to run, to do literally anything except continue observing. But the humans aboard the Defiant, they were treating it like scenery. "Oh, that's neat," I heard Lieutenant Yuki comment over the internal comms. "Kind of looks like that weird art installation we saw on Proxima Station last year. You know, the one that gave the Salmari delegation those nightmares? The one made entirely of recursive holograms and existential dread?" someone else replied. "Yeah, I can see the resemblance. This one's got better color balance, though." They were critiquing it. They were treating a trans-dimensional horror like it was moderately interesting public art. And the anomaly was shrinking. "Defiant to all vessels," Eliza transmitted. "We're now at optimal position, Dr. Al-Rashid. Your show." The science ship Curiosity maneuvered closer, and I watched as a series of devices deployed from its hull, strange geometric constructs that hurt to look at directly, deploying resonance dampeners. Al-Rashid reported, his voice steady despite the absurdity of what they were attempting. "These beauties are going to basically tell the anomaly that it's boring and should go bother someone else." You're insulting it," I managed to ask. "Not exactly insulting," Al-Rashid clarified. "More like, we're broadcasting a field that mathematically represents indifference. It's conceptual physics. We're making the fabric of space-time itself yawn at this thing. If our calculations are correct, the entity on the other side will eventually get the hint and return to whatever reality it came from. And if your calculations are incorrect, then Plan B involves Captain Ferreira doing something he's been describing as percussive dimensional maintenance, which I'm told is military jargon for blow it up until it goes away." The resonance dampeners activated, and space itself seemed sigh. I don't have better words for it. It was like reality was expressing mild disappointment at having to deal with this nonsense. The anomaly flickered, pulsed once, twice, and then began to collapse in on itself. It wasn't a violent collapse, it was almost dignified, like a performer realizing their audience has left and deciding to pack up for the night. The writhing edges pulled inward, the impossible colors faded to something approaching normal space-time, and within 30 minutes the tear had sealed itself completely. There was a moment of absolute silence across all channels. Then, Eliza's voice cut through. "Well, that was anticlimactic. Lieutenant Yuki, please tell me someone got decent sensor recordings before we turned everything off." Negative, Commander. As per your orders, we weren't recording anything, right? Good. Because if we had recordings, we'd have to file reports, and I really don't want to try explaining this to Fleet Command. Official log entry, anomaly resolved through standard diplomatic protocols. No further action required. "Commander," Al-Rashid interjected, "we just solved a Category 5 stellar crisis using the power of not caring. That's groundbreaking research. The scientific papers alone will never be published because the moment we try to study what we did, we'll probably summon the damn thing back. Doctor, this is one of those rare occasions where ignorance is not just bliss. It's a tactical necessity." I found my voice again, though it came out strangled. "Defiant, this is Ambassador Velrith. I need to report this to the Council. What exactly should I tell them?" There was a pause, and I could almost hear Eliza thinking. "Tell them the truth." Humanity assessed the situation, determined the optimal solution, and executed it with minimal collateral damage. The threat has been neutralized. We'll be filing a full report that contains approximately 0 useful information, as is our custom. They're going to have questions. Let them ask, we'll have answers. They won't like the answers, but we'll have them. Captain Ferreira's voice came through next. "Ambassador, off the record, tell them that sometimes the best way to handle cosmic horror is to refuse to let it be horrifying. The universe is weird and full of things that want to eat us, but they only win if we let them scare us into paralysis. Humans learned a long time ago that the appropriate response to the absurd is to be even more absurd right back at it." The journey back to the observation platform was quiet, contemplative. I watched the human fleet regroup, perform what they called post-mission diagnostics, and then proceed to have what appeared to be an impromptu celebration involving something called pizza and that weird liquor Ferreira's been hiding in the cargo bay. 3 days later, I presented my report to the Galactic Council. High Chancellor Morthix listened with his eye stalks at maximum extension, which indicated either deep concentration or the early stages of a nervous breakdown. With Morthix, it was often difficult to tell the difference. "So you're telling me," he said slowly when I'd finished, "that humanity resolved the crisis by not resolving it, by ignoring it until it went away?" "That's an oversimplification, but essentially yes, Chancellor." Commander Krell was laughing, that deep, rumbling sound that Garathi make when they encounter something that violates their understanding of combat doctrine, but that they grudgingly respect. "This is the most human solution to a problem I've ever heard." They looked at conventional wisdom, military doctrine, and 300 cycles of strategic planning and said, "Nah, we're going to try not caring instead." "And it worked," Ambassador Thalix added, her harmonics suggesting she was still processing this information. "Against all reasonable expectation, it actually worked." "Perhaps," I said carefully, "that's because humans have a different definition of reasonable than the rest of us. They've built their entire civilization on the principle that if something seems impossible, you just haven't tried hard enough or thought weird enough yet." High Chancellor Morthix deflated slightly, his chromatophores settling into a resigned blue-green. "I suppose we should be grateful. The alternative was deploying multiple battle fleets and probably making everything worse. Still, I'm adding a new clause to the Council's operational handbook. If humans volunteer to handle something, let them, but increase surveillance of the surrounding sectors by 300% and prepare evacuation plans just in case." "That seems prudent, Chancellor." Ambassador Velrith, one more question. "Do you think they'll volunteer again?" I thought about Eliza's smile, Captain Ferreira's casual competence, Dr. Al-Rashid's enthusiasm for weaponized indifference. I thought about a species that had looked at a trans-dimensional horror and decided the appropriate response was aggressive apathy. "Chancellor," I said finally, "I think the better question is, what are we going to do when they inevitably say those 4 words again? Because here's what I've learned about humans in my 6 cycles observing them. They don't just solve problems, they redefine what solving problems means. And the next time the galaxy faces something impossible, something that violates the laws of physics and common sense, humanity's going to look at it, shrug, and say we'll handle it. And somewhere, 3 entire battle fleets are going to immediately begin filing their retirement papers."